Hoang, thanks for joining me. Thanks for coming here and joining me in the courtyard here at the Continental.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
Good to see you.
Long time no see, actually. Hey, I've just got a few questions for you about this place because I want to learn a little bit more about it, a little bit about the history and perhaps the culture of the place. So, how does it feel sitting here?
Well, this place was built, if you read online, it would be about 1880s when a lot of major buildings were being constructed around that time. So it goes way back. This was some place that in my neighborhood. So I went to school a few blocks
Right,
away.
so you actually grew up around here?
No, I grew up in district, currently it's district 10, but
Okay.
now, in the old days it was district 3. But
Right.
my school was here, so I was here all day long. So
Right.
I grew up here, and then I've been working around this neighborhood for 2 or 3 decades by now.
You're super local. I didn't realize that when I asked you to come here and have a chat. You've obviously got some fond memories of this area and perhaps this building. Did you actually spend any time in this?
I spent, like I said, I spent a lot of time in the neighborhood, but this particular building, actually, as a kid, my favorite places were the Rex and Eden.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah,
And
because,
the Rex is behind us.
Yes,
It's about a block
and the Eden's is-
over. And Eden
were
used to be
just across the street, right?
So you used to hang out in the Eden.
Well, they had the cinemas, and in the late '60s, I was preteen, so I remember going to the cinemas and using the escalator and air conditioning and
So that was a thing.
the smell
going
of
there to
cigarettes.
use- well, actually, if you go behind us, you'll be able to experience the smell of cigarettes. So that was a thing. You would go to the Eden building to
Hang out.
to experience the
Yeah.
escalators and go to the movies. What sort of movies were playing at that time? Were
It's
you
funny.
allowed in?
No. It's funny that I remember a lot of the American movies, but we purchased it from the French. So you would find Charles Bronson speaking French,
Okay,
in these
that's weird.
Hollywood movies. So I grew up watching Charles Bronson speaking French.
And so you speak French and you're a bit
No,
of a
the
tough
school
guy
that I
as well.
went to, was a French school.
Okay.
So I should,
Yep.
I should speak French, but I don't.
As a Vietnamese person, how does it make you feel sitting here, like coming today and coming back to this place?
Yeah, I mean, history is it depends on how you look at it, right? So I was joking with you earlier about in the time when this building was built, you probably be sitting here drinking, and I'll probably be serving you. You would be the colonialist, right? And I would be in the
Me,
old
a
days.
colonialist?
And I would be the coolie.
Right.
So that was a
okay.
French term for the Vietnamese, workers or whatever. So coolies. So I don't think it was a great place for the Vietnamese back then.
Right.
So, but history changed, like it always
Yeah.
does, So, like in the 50s, 60s, probably during the American War.
Yeah.
It's called American War here, but in America it's called Vietnam War. So it depends on who's talking.
Yep.
During the American War, this was the hub. This was the hub, apparently, where a lot of people hung out. And this is before the internet, so there was no virtual hub, right? So this was a physical hub where a lot of people hung out and talked about the wars and what's going on. And I read that even the major press, like Newsweek and Times, they had their offices up here.
Right.
So this is where everybody hung out, in the restaurants or in the lounges, so covering up the wars. So history is probably a big thing for this place. And
Would you describe it as, even though it's a long time ago since the American War, as it's called here, Do you have mixed feelings about places like this, or perhaps you can't comment on behalf of all of the Vietnamese people, but do they have mixed feelings about, say, the French colonial era? And the
I think so. I mean, architecture is a very sensitive phenomenon. You know, there's a purpose for every building. So it was built to cater towards a particular group of people. It happens now. You know, there are places built for only the upper class. So this was built for only the French. So if you were Vietnamese workers, you were not allowed to have a beer here, like we have a beer here. You know, so
they would have been shooed away at the door.
Exactly. So architecture is a very political thing. So it's normal. It's normal. Even now, you know, they build projects, gated communities where.
That's right.
You know, if you don't belong to a certain class, you're not allowed to go in.
Right.
And sometimes if you drive a fancy car, they just let you in.
You're an architect. How about your feeling sitting here as an architect? Put your architect's hat on, and what do you see and what do you feel?
It's not a masterpiece. It has never been a masterpiece. To me, it's a beautiful building. It's well designed, very well designed.
How is it well designed? What makes it well designed?
Well, the French had in those times, they knew the climate very well. So this was one of the buildings that works so well in a tropical climate. You know, this courtyard is a classic. It helps the ventilation with the rooms. For example, you have the rooms with two windows on both sides and 4 meters.
So it comes through.
Exactly.
So they're actually rooms that go all the way to the front. I think there's a hall.
I'm not sure, but ideally, you know, you would have a room with 2 openings on both sides.
Right.
And then both sides would face the natural environment, and then that way the ventilation would be a cross ventilation. And then they also did a very high ceiling, like a 4-meter tall.
They're huge, and the doors are huge as well. They're about 10 feet or something. I don't know. I can barely touch the top. Yeah.
This was a brilliant job. You know, I'm sure they wouldn't do this in Paris.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
they wouldn't do this in Paris or probably in the south of France with a similar climate. You know.
How important is this building to Ho Chi Minh City these days in terms of culturally, architecturally, aesthetically?
It's very important. I think the people who manage it realize that, so they're banking on its history. But in my opinion, they should be paying more attention to other things too, because I mean the history is great. Everybody reads about it. Everybody knows about it. But you should be paying attention to the current needs, the current you know.
Which is the modern traveller, presumably.
Exactly.
And businessmen.
Exactly.
Business. So, just looking around the building and using your knowledge of the building over many years, what design elements catch your eye? What do you like about it?
The best thing about this project is the courtyard.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it?
The courtyard.
I think it's the best place in Saigon to have breakfast, to be honest.
Yeah.
Today was the first time that I'd had breakfast here. And it's, you know, obviously the sun, we're getting towards the middle of the day at the moment, so the sun's almost directly above the courtyard. But in the mornings, obviously, it's just peeking up over the buildings, and there's a beautiful light. And as you said, the ventilation's nice, and the acoustics.
Oh, it helps because of these trees, right? These huge trees that were planted around that time.
Which built.
I read that.
Were planted.
Yeah, I read that these trees were planted at the same time.
Yeah.
So they have been here for ages. Huh?
That's right. Yeah. So it's really nice. So I think this would be my favourite part of the building as well. It's really nice. I don't mind the lobby as well. I like how it's spacious.
And you notice too, it's cross ventilation from the main entry
Right.
to here. So there's always wind
I
blowing.
only just
right
noticed that when I was waiting for you, actually. Yeah.
It's all designed by the architects. Yeah.
So the Hotel Continental here is, it's about 142 years
Right.
old now.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it's important in terms of the culture here and the history and has a lot of stories to tell. Are there any modern buildings around town that might be here in another 142 years' time that we can say the same things about?
It's difficult to answer that because I think the circumstances are different here now comparing to back then.
Right.
At the moment, a lot of buildings in Vietnam or Saigon being built very quickly. And these are huge buildings, 35-story, 45-story buildings, right? They were designed very quickly.
Yep.
They were built very fast. And then, since they're so huge and they made of reinforced concrete, they're going to be around for a long time.
Right.
So you and I is going to have to look at this monstrosity, and then our children.
Hopefully not for another 142 years.
Well, our children will. You know?
Yeah.
So, and ironically, though, I was thinking on my way here was the good buildings being done by the local Vietnamese architect. Well, us here in Vietnam, we pay a lot of attention to be environmentally friendly. So a lot of our decision making are about not making the buildings lasting too long.
Right. Okay.
So a good practice for an architect is your buildings don't have to be around for a long time.
Wow.
It's better for the earth.
What's the sort of average age that you sort of
No, I mean people actually build with woods and things
Yeah,
that
right.
will vanish in 50 years, and that's considered good practice. So the sad irony, in my opinion, is those good buildings won't be around, but the bad buildings, the 45-story buildings,
We're not talking about this one, though.
will be around. No, this one will be around.
Yeah,
luckily.
this one will be. Yeah, it's
Now this
heritage
is
listed
protected.
now.
This is protected, which is great. I mean, the government protect this building. No one can touch it.
Yeah.
So it's a very good law. I support it.
We often hear about how a lot of heritage buildings around Saigon have been torn down or bulldozed or whatever. How many heritage buildings like this are actually left?
A very small amount.
Small amount.
Yeah. So they are protected as long as they are labeled landmarks officially, right?
Okay.
So many buildings are not labeled as historic heritages. So we mentioned the Eden block. That's where I used to hang out. It's a beautiful, beautiful block. And then also I also had an office there in the 20s, in 2000 something.
Right.
And then 213 Đồng Khởi is another.
Okay, yes. Near Vincom?
That's a beautiful building.
Was that block where Vincom
Yeah.
is?
No. Opposite.
Right, okay.
The one that's now being replaced by the office, the city offices.
Right, okay.
They done the full colonial replacement.
Yep.
So a lot of buildings that were built around the time of this building have been demolished. So knowing that this will be protected legally by the government is a very good thing.
Yeah.
There should be more of them.
Yeah.
There should be more of them around town. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially in this area and down Dom Khoi Street, which is a very historic street and one of the oldest.
Yes,
right?
it is. It is.
Yeah. And just finally, what's something about this hotel that you know that I can't find in travel guides online? I'm after a bit of a scoop.
I'm gonna twist your question
Okay.
so I can
right.
answer.
All right.
I'm gonna answer something that is not discussed widely, because I think this hotel would be benefited if it can be preserved in a way that You know, when you read online, it's always try to capitalize on the history.
Yes.
And to me, that's not enough. It should look at the metropole in Hanoi. It should look at the Raffles in Singapore.
Right.
Buildings, historic buildings, need to be preserved well, and it done correctly. The right way. There are a lot of add-ons that you notice that were probably add-ons during the 70s, during the 60s.
Well, I learned yesterday that the building behind us was actually the first installment of the hotel, and then this. I don't know if you call it a wing or what, and then this one over here. So it's a bit confusing. This is A, this is B, this is C, but this was the first one that was built.
Right,
and
right.
actually, Fung, who works here, she took us up onto the roof yesterday, and she showed me the original roof.
I saw
that
that.
she says is still there.
Yeah.
So
I saw
was
that.
a little
I saw that.
skeptical, but she assures me that it's the original roof.
Okay.
But yeah, there, as you were saying, there are some add-ons here that perhaps...
It's a tricky business because who can decide these add-ons are not worth keeping? So so preservation is always a challenging practice.
Yeah.
You have to know, whether that you should take that away or you should keep it. And
So if you owned it, what would be one thing? I'm going to throw this at you now.
Okay.
This is not rehearsed. If you owned it, what would be one thing you would do to it?
I would turn it into, I would preserve it the right way. And the right way means that you would preserve the correct way. You would look at historic drawings, you look at historic documentation, and you would learn its whole history, and you would document it into a good reference point. Okay. And then you use that to renovate and preserve the buildings up to the standards required to do and that. And like I mentioned, several good examples of preservation projects that have been done for hotels, and you would cater to the new contemporary needs. A good hotel operation manager would recognize.
So nightclub, disco balls.
No,
not that.
Cafe.
Presumably, you would need a bag full of cash as well to finish this place off.
Let me call my accountant and see if I can arrange that.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. Yeah, good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you.